Hey everyone, how's it going? Matthew Kadish here, author of the Earthman Jack Space Saga, available over on Amazon.com. And if you guys want to support the channel, go check out my books and see if you like them. But anyway, getting to stuff that you probably are going to be guaranteed to like, we're going to be talking about Star Wars today. And it was just announced at the D23 Expo, some confirmations on what we can expect in terms of new Star Wars TV series for the Disney Plus streaming service. And we're going to be kind of unpacking these today and figuring out what we can expect going forward in terms of Star Wars content on the streaming services. And basically, going back to when Disney first acquired the Star Wars franchise from George Lucas, they had a lot of stuff kind of planned for the franchise. They basically were bragging that they had a 100-year plan where they were going to be making Star Wars content for the next 100 years and cashing in on it, not only in terms of movies, but in terms of comic books, theme park stuff, basically running the whole gamut of all the potential content that you could make from a Star Wars franchise. And basically, their initial film slate was very ambitious. They were going to do a movie every year, a Star Wars movie every year for pretty much, until they ran out of ideas, I guess. But that strategy kind of got thrown for a loop after the box office failure of Solo, A Star Wars Story, where there were a lot of production problems with that movie. They basically had to reshoot 70% of the movie after replacing the directors who were initially shooting the film. And that doubled the budget effectively. And also Solo failed to perform very well at the box office. I mean, it made $500 million something dollars, which by normal standards would be considered a success. But for a Star Wars movie, that was bottom of the barrel. I think it's probably the least grossing Star Wars movie in history in terms of box office. And that kind of threw Disney for a loop. And so after that failure, Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, basically said, maybe we should slow down on the yearly releases. I think it was not only a question of Star Wars fatigue, where they were saying people were getting too overexposed to Star Wars stuff, but it was mostly about, I think, that Kathleen Kennedy's she wasn't able to keep up with that type of production schedule, because juggling all those concurrent movies going on at the same time, it just seemed to be too much for her. She was hiring the wrong people, and they were kind of getting out of control, and she would have to come in and kind of clean up the messes, and that would distract her from the new development and stuff like that. And so I think the decision was made to kind of slow down on the movie front. But that left the avenue open to kind of ramp up production on the TV front. And the Star Wars, had been trying to get on TV for years. But under George Lucas, he wanted like $50 million an episode for his TV show, which was just unsustainable. But considering the technology involved and all the costumes and creature effects and special effects and stuff like that, I could see George Lucas wanting that type of budget. But even he knew that was unsustainable. But under Disney, the TV shows have definitely kind of gotten a boost. And in the recent D23 Expo, I'm just going to go through what has been confirmed already in terms of what we can expect from Disney Star Wars in the TV front. So the first one that's coming up is The Mandalorian. And this is not Boba Fett. This is a completely new character. This was created by Jon Favreau, who is the director of Iron Man. He's kind of Disney's golden boy director right now, especially since J.J. Abrams has left to go over to Warner's. And Favreau has been the one kind of behind this new TV series. He's basically written every episode, and he's been overseeing the production as the showrunner. And he's also been pushing a lot of very interesting, innovative technology for it, which allows them to do movie quality special effects on a TV show schedule and budget, which is pretty interesting. And I'm not going to go over the movies here, but we also got it confirmed that we're getting an Obi-Wan TV show. And Ewan McGregor is coming back to reprise his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi. And what's really interesting about this is that an Obi-Wan series has been in the works, or I should say an Obi-Wan movie or project has been in the works since at least going back as far as 2014, as far as we know. And Kathleen Kennedy even said that these negotiations have been going on for upwards of 4 years now. So we can assume that they started in 2015. And there were lots of reports that Obi-Wan was actually going to get his own trilogy of anthology movies back when Disney was planning on doing these Star Wars stories. And we're actually going to dive into that in a little bit. We also have the untitled Cassian Andor TV series. If you recognize Cassian Andor from Rogue One, he's basically getting his own spin-off series for Disney Plus. And other than the Clone Wars coming back, this is basically it in terms of what we can expect for TV shows from the Star Wars universe for Disney Plus's streaming service. Now, let's go back just a little bit to talk about what Disney's strategy was and what we can probably expect from them going forward. So we have this Business Insider article, and this is back from 2014. So this is about 5 years ago at the time of this recording. And I'm just going to go through this the beginning of this real quick, where it says, during Disney's Q2 earnings call, CEO Bob Iger spoke briefly about the future of Star Wars movies, saying that there are at least 3 spin-off films in the works. We're in development on spin-off films, which we have not gotten specific about, he added, but we feel that we've got at least 3 that we're targeting to go into production. That pipeline is going to be rich and certainly through the end of the decade. He also hinted that the Star Wars saga may not end with episodes 7, 8, and 9. We intend to make at least 3 of the Star Wars saga, 7, 8, and 9, said Iger. This should be roughly every other year. Previously, Iger would not comment on the number of spin-off films, but he has said that the standalone pictures will follow individual characters. It's been rumored the movies may follow Yoda, Han Solo, or Boba Fett. Okay, so basically we knew that as far back as 2014, Disney was planning to do at least 3 Star Wars stories films, okay? And these were meant to kind of go in tandem with the 7, 8, and 9 trilogy, where you'd get episode 7, then you'd get a solo Star Wars story film, then you'd get episode 8, then a Star Wars story film, then episode 9, then a Star Wars story film, and then a new trilogy. And that was their initial plan. They were not shy about sharing this plan at all. But the thing that they were kind of shy about was what we could expect in terms of Star Wars story films. Now, we know that eventually this turned out to be Rogue One and the Han Solo standalone film, but we never knew what the third one was. Now, there's a lot of speculation if we go back here. This is another story from Collider, which was published in 2013, the beginning of 2013. So this is even going further back than the last article that we did. But you can see here that there was already kind of speculation that we were going to get a couple different characters for these standalone films. So if we just go down here, it's kind of talks about working on the spin-off movies with Lawrence Kasdan and Simon Kinberg. But per Entertainment Weekly, 2 of the spin-off projects currently in development are a young Han Solo saga focusing on the wisecracking smuggler's origin story, and a bounty hunter adventure with Boba Fett at the center of a rogues gallery of galactic scum. The Han Solo story, as we know, went through. It was Solo, a Star Wars story. But the Boba Fett movie never actually materialized. If we go down here, they're speculating on what it could mean. But there was a lot of different speculation as to what else was coming out of the pipeline. So we heard rumors, this is going back 2014, 2015. We heard rumors of a Yoda-centric Star Wars story series and an Obi-Wan-centric Star Wars story series. And so if we look at if we look at the slate that Disney Plus has lined up, so we know that the very first Star Wars story was Rogue One, and this was it was initially rumored to be a movie that was going to be helmed by Zack Snyder, and it was going to be kind of like a Seven Samurai type film where, different characters kind of came together to protect like a town or something from, the Empire. And that ended up, kind of just being a rumor, but I believe that initial concept was morphed into Rogue One, where we actually saw the events that took place leading up to the Death Star plans being stolen and given to the rebellion. And if we take that as the first concept that was kind of put forward as the first anthology movie for the Star Wars plan back in 2014, 2015, we can also see that Han Solo was kind of a lock back then, mostly because of Lawrence Kasdan and him wanting to do that. But the question is what the third one that Bob Iger in his earnings call was talking about. And I believe that one has been and always was the Obi-Wan series, because we actually have a really good article from a publication called Cinelinx dating back to 2015 that says that Lucasfilm has been developing a trilogy of Obi-Wan centric movies since the 2014-2015 timeframe. So I'm pretty confident that the third movie that Iger was talking about in his interview or his earnings call was indeed Obi-Wan. Now, that being said, we have the Boba Fett series, which we know that at some point Josh Trank, the director of the Fantastic Four movie that bombed really badly, and I forget the name of his other film, but basically Josh Trank was at least briefly attached to direct a Boba Fett-centric movie, and there was a lot of rumors about Yoda getting his own movie as well. So if we look at this, basically the Cassian Andor series is just a repurposed Rogue One. So they took their Rogue One anthology concept and spun a Disney Plus show off of it. The Mandalorian is basically the Boba Fett movie, except without Boba Fett, but it's essentially about Boba Fett being a bounty hunter. Instead, we have a whole new character. So it's just the repurposed Boba Fett anthology movie turned into a TV series. And of course, the original plan for Obi-Wan was to give him his own trilogy of anthology movies. And now they've just spun that off into an Obi-Wan TV show for Disney Plus. So what we're seeing here is that after Bob Iger basically, after the failure of Solo, and he changed the release strategy for Disney films, a lot of what Lucasfilms had planned in terms of movies suddenly got yanked off the slate and repurposed as Disney Plus TV series in order to feed content into the Disney Plus series. So what do we know about other Star Wars anthology films that either failed or didn't go forward? We can probably expect to see some of that in the pipeline. So for instance, we know that Han Solo was, one of these Star Wars story films. Obviously, they're probably not going to go forward with Han Solo, but what they could do is very similar to what they did with Rogue One, where they basically, spin off a Crimson Dawn TV series that focuses around the Kira character, played by the girl who played Khaleesi in Game of Thrones. What's her name? Emilia Clarke. So you could have Emilia Clarke cast in one of these things, coming back to reprise her role as Kira, and we see her adventures with the Crimson Dawn. We know that they're bringing back Maul for the Obi-Wan series. At least that's the speculation, so they might as well bring him back for the Crimson Dawn series. So I think that we might see something along those lines. Possibly we might see Donald Glover come back to reprise his role as Lando in a TV series. So just off of the Solo, a Star Wars story, they might spin off those two things to kind of, give us more content. And then we have Yoda, and I think that it's probably a good idea, or not a good idea, but a good bet that we may see a Yoda-type series come down the line that might actually use that Seven Samurai concept that eventually morphed into Rogue One all the way back in 2015 timeframe, where we see a younger Yoda kind of bring together a group of motley Jedis to fight against some type of evil. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential here, but I think that we've seen basically how the strategy is for Lucasfilm and Disney going forward, where they're basically taking all their old ideas for these character-centric anthology movies and repurposing them as Disney Plus exclusive TV shows and miniseries. I think the Obi-Wan Kenobi series isn't going to be like something where we get like a season 2, season 3. I think this is going to be more of a miniseries. We know for a fact that The Mandalorian is going to be a continuing series because season 2 is already in production. It's already been greenlit, and this is going to be the flagship Star Wars show that they launched Disney Plus with. The Cassian Andor series is most likely going to be a continuation as well, so we can expect multiple seasons from that. But once Obi-Wan ends, they're probably going to want to fill that void with another Star Wars TV show. And I'm guessing that would be probably the Crimson Dawn or the Yoda one going forward. And, there's been some rumors about a Luke Skywalker TV series for Disney Plus where they basically recast a younger Luke, and we see what happens to him either in between episodes 5 and 6, so Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, where he basically completes his training, or we see what happens to him after Return of the Jedi. I don't put too much stock into that rumor because I think Disney has shown that they kind of want to get away from Luke Skywalker, but I guess we have to chalk it up to, it's possible at least. Anyway, guys, that's my take on this. I hope you enjoyed this analysis. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I love to hear from you. And for all movie, TV, and industry news and analysis, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. This is Matthew Kadish, and I will catch you in the next video.